Welcome to California Unearthed. We are in the city of Redding today at Battery Systems at 2146 Pine Street. And we're here for a very specific reason. The flat area you see behind me was Redding's very first cemetery. Obviously it's no longer here, but the bodies of those who were buried here still may exist under this parking lot. I got Jeremy Tuggle with me. Introduce yourself, Jeremy.
Jeremy M. Tuggle. I'm the Education Community Engagement Manager for Shasta Historical Society.
Jeremy wrote an article back in 2018 about this cemetery, so I am going to have him talk about the cemetery or the people who were buried here that he knows of, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about brief history of the city of Redding. Just to put this in context, the Southern Pacific Railroad came through here in 1872. This was the northern terminus of the railroad. They knew the cemetery was here, so they bypassed the cemetery. The tracks are a couple of blocks to the west of us. So in 1867 is the first burial here, and Jeremy will talk about that here in a minute. But like I said, the railroad bypassed it in 1872. By 1906, the cemetery was forgotten about and abandoned. Rediscovered it in 1906. So let me flip the camera around to have Jeremy tell you about this, and then we're going to go check out the 1890s newer Redding Cemetery. All right, so this is the old abandoned cemetery here in this flat section. You see where the hillside slopes off right here. So there may be bodies remaining here in this parking lot
And in the street.
and here on Pine Street as well. This kind of reminds me of the El Campo Cemetery in Old Town San Diego, where they did ground penetrating radar and found coffins in the streets and in some of the businesses in Old Town San Diego. All right, so Jeremy, give us a little history on this.
This cemetery, as you can see, is no longer here. It is now all public and private. Public being portions of city streets here, Pine Street, and then private, some of it being businesses and what have you. Battery Systems right behind us. Used to be the home of Biggins Lighting back in 2018 when my article originally came out on this subject.
And where can they find your article?
Exploring Shasta County history.
And I will put it in the description down below as well.
So, City of Redding, or the town of Redding, was laid out by the California and Oregon Railroad, a division of the Central Pacific Railroad, June 15th, 1872. The first streets were north, south, east, west, followed by the nearby counties: Shasta, Tehama, Yuba, Butte, and from there we are, what did you say, about 2 blocks southwest of South?
Yes.
Here is where the townspeople created the first Redding Cemetery. And it was on this ground here, mainly the flat surface of this area. The first burial occurred in 1867, and it was the death of Samuel Dinsmore, son of John W. Dinsmore and Arabella McLashel Wood. So this is where he was interred at. The second burial was actually a daughter of Henry Clay Farrell and Angelina Dinsmore Woodruff. Now, Harry Clay Farrell would be my paternal great uncle. And so I do have a family relation to the Dinsmore and Farrell families. So, in a nutshell, they were the first burial series. Now, 39 years later, in 1906, the Redding Water Company were lowering the mains to the water system here on Pine Street. And so this flat surface, where I'm trying not to get hit by a car if I can, avoid that. all this flat surface is where they were digging up the burials. This is all part of the Reading Abandoned Cemetery, established in 1867, forgotten about until 1906, 39 years later, and then later on reinterred into the Reading Memorial Park, which at that time was Reading Cemetery.
And there's, in your article, you have reference to a couple of newspaper articles saying that they found them in the streets of Reading. It was a gruesome discovery.
Correct. So the ones that actually broadcasted or headlined this were the Free Press newspaper of Reading, followed by the San Francisco Call newspaper of San Francisco.
The one thing that amazes me here is the cemetery was established in 1867, like Jeremy said, but in 1906 they rediscovered it. So 39 years later, somehow the cemetery got lost and abandoned and forgotten about, which is really sad. And that has happened to a lot of cemeteries here in California, especially the ones established in the 1850s, 1860s. They were forgotten about. This is one of them. And I would love, absolutely love, to see my fellow brothers, the Clampers, ECV, plaque this site if that's possible. There's no plaque on here saying what this used to be, and not a lot of people in Reading or in Shasta County even know the cemetery used to be established here. So I think it would be a great idea for ECV, the Clampers, to plaque this site at some point in time, just to let people know walking by or driving by what this used to be. So let's head on over to Reading Memorial Park and check that out real quick. Meet me over there. All right, we made it out here to Reading Memorial Park, and let's look at the burials that were reinterred from the old abandoned cemetery we were just at. This is the final resting place for two of the very first interments into the old Reading Cemetery on Pine Street. First is Samuel Dinsmore, who passed away at 25 years old on April 24th, 1867 of consumption. Unfortunately, his first name is misspelled here. Next to him is his sister Angelina Dinsmore Farrell, who was the mother of our second interment, Arabella Farrell, who passed away at 11 years old on July 27th, 1867. Point of interest, Angeline Dinsmore Farrell, who I just mentioned, is buried next to her brother Samuel, and her daughter Arabella Farrell married Henry Clay Farrell, who happens to be Jeremy Tuggle's paternal 3 times great uncle, and who is also buried just a few graves down from his wife and daughter. Also buried right around them is Samuel and Angeline's parents, John and Arabella Dinsmore, as well. This is the final resting place of Joseph W. Brackett, born March 12, 1836 in Ohio, to Joseph Warren and Lydia Brackett. He was a lawyer and teacher here in the Reading area until his death on March 27, 1875, where his funeral was supervised by the Masonic order in which he was a member. He left behind a wife and many children. This is the final resting place for Emery Farner, who passed away on March 20th, 1876 of drowning in a small creek that ran through Reading next to railroad tracks. He's just down, as you can see, from Joseph Brackett, and the Dinsmores are right behind me. But if you also notice, he does not have a headstone here, but he is surrounded by 5 other members of the Farner family. This is the final resting place of Ethel Florence Wood, born June 7, 1876, and passed away February 15, 1877. She was only 8 months old. Daughter of William Augustus and Maddie Wood. William Augustus Wood and her brothers Albert and Carl are also buried here at Reading Memorial Cemetery. This is our final grave. This is Anna Gilbert, who passed away on July 29, 1877, at only 3 months and 19 days old. She is buried here with what I'm assuming is her grandfather, Jonathan R. Gilbert, who passed away in 1882 at 76 years old. And if you look in the distance, this grave is halfway between the Dinsmores and Joseph Brackett, which is behind me there. All right, so that's it for this episode of California Unearthed. I want to say a big, huge thank you to Jeremy for helping me out on this video. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, since I first read his article on that abandoned cemetery. I am a big fan of historical cemeteries, always have been. And since I saw that article, I really wanted to do this. And so thank you, Jeremy, for doing this with me.
You're welcome. Thank you, Robert. It's my pleasure. And once again, if you haven't yet, follow me on YouTube at Jeremy Tuggle. My show is called Exploring Shasta County History.
And follow his blog as well.
Yep. My blog is also by the same name, Exploring Shasta County History, and it's powered by Google Blogger.
All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and look for more videos. I'm definitely going to be doing a downtown Redding walking tour video here in the next week or two after I get some research done, and that'll be kind of a lengthy video as well. So this one's a little bit shorter, but very important. This is very historically significant. Like I said earlier, not a whole lot of people know about Redding's very first cemetery. So come join me on another adventure of California Unearthed, where we're going to unearth a lot more California history. Subscribe, put a like on the video, comment down below.
And watch out for future collaborations between California Unearthed and Exploring Shasta County History.
That's it. We'll see you guys on the next one.